So hello everyone. So this is not our first session. So hello to the ones who were there before and to the new ones. So the agenda of today is first a very brief introduction, and I will make a very brief overview of the platform. We are not going to see everything from the platform today, but just a part, but just to situate that in the whole platform, I will just remind you of the different parts. And then we will concentrate on these four parts. So how to find public data set, how to download the data, how to understand the data, and how to visualize it. Can you see my pointer? Yes, okay. So first, general questions, why using this Pollinator Hub? There are plenty of different reasons depending on if you are a data provider, so if you want to upload data or if you want just to consume data. So for example, if you are a data provider, going through the hub will ensure that your data are FAIR, which is an acronym for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So these are basically good practices for data management. You're also going to share the data with the community, but not any community. So community specialized in pollinator data and pollinator science. So, for example, relative to other platforms that are much more general, like Zenodo, there the data is really lost in plenty of more data. Here, it's really focused on one theme. But the data will also be automatically shared on Zenodo through the EFSA knowledge junction. So this means that the data that are on the hub are in fact also hosted on Zenodo, which is a very broad platform. So this has also some guarantees of interoperability and for the future. Uploading the data to the hub will also help you generate a DOI. So it's a unique identification of a publication, a data set, or anything online, or you can reuse existing one. And then the data on the hub can also be processed for more advanced data visualization. I will show you a few examples afterwards. And well, this is not yet for now, but it will be in the future. You can receive data report related to the data set you have submitted. And you can also, in the future, you will be able to combine different data sets between each other. And just an additional point. So the first point here is the FAIR data, so the good practices. In fact, FAIR is just a small portion of that. So generally, this is a more precise overview of all the steps you should do to have good data. And well, that's often a bit daunting because there are so many things that you need to do to have good data or good practices of data management. But in fact, just by sharing the data publicly, you will ensure a good part of it. So for example, if you share the data on a public platform like Zenodo, the first 5 steps here will be already fulfilled. And the BeeHub, the Pollinator Hub, sorry, will also help you to ensure the last step here so that the data are comprehensible. So for example, that the metadata are well described, the data is validated because there is a validation process on the hub, the data is reusable because you have this DOI and licenses, etc. So just by forcing yourself to use this hub, you enforce good data practices, and the process and the platform will help you to do that. It's once you have done that a few times, it's really easy, and it's not as daunting as it can look at first sight. So first, a platform overview. So you can access to the platform through this URL here. And I have to warn you that the platform is still in development. So what I'm going to show you today will probably change, not fundamentally, but there might be some minor change, new feature or reorganization in the future. So that's yeah. And another thing that I wanted to say is that I'm going to show you plenty of stuff. I know that it can go a little bit too fast sometimes, but after the presentation, I will do a live session. So I will redo basically what I show you here, but live. So I will repeat myself, but generally it's good to repeat yourself in this kind of situation when you have plenty of possibilities and clicking everywhere. So I will just repeat that afterwards, but with a live session. So once you are on the platform, you have a banner on the top, and you have three main menus, and these three main menus show you the three main parts of the platform. You have My Data Catalog, which is the place you go if you want to upload new data set and manage these data sets. You have a dictionary. I will show you briefly afterwards what we mean by a dictionary. And then you have the part where you discover data sets. So today we are going to focus on that part. But first, I will just remind you or explain for those who were not there in the previous training session, just what these two parts are. And afterwards, I go deeper on the browsing section. So the dictionary, it's a place where you have a dictionary of terms, definition and translation. And the ultimate objective is to help us standardize the terms that are in different data sets, to make the data sets better interoperable. So that both for humans, but also for machines, so that the computer can understand that, okay, this kind of data that is in this data set is the same kind of data in another data set, and they can be merged. And there is another problem, is translation. You have plenty of data sets. In the scientific community, the datasets are usually in English, but you have also plenty of very interesting datasets that are in local languages. And if I have to treat a dataset which is in Slovenian, it will be difficult for me to understand exactly what is in the dataset. So this translation can be very useful, both for the platform, for the interface of the platform, but also to understand and to translate the content of the dataset. Then you have the data catalog. So that's where you upload your data. And the process is that you upload first the data, and you can see here that there is an icon that says that this data set is private. So at first you just upload, and the data set is just for you. It's not public, and you have the time to upload everything that is needed to document the data set. Then it will go through a reviewing process, and finally it will be publicly published. I'm sorry, because I have the banner of Zoom that is in my way, and I cannot see my slide. Okay, sorry. And also on the top right here, you can change the data provider. And the idea here is that you can collaborate on dataset with different groups of people. And to do that, you have to change your data provider role. These are basically group of people who are sharing the same data set, because you can, for example, work in different places or collaborate with different people. So that was just very briefly these two parts. So we went through that in the previous training session. There has been already some improvement and some additional stuff in that part, but I'm not going to go deeper for that part today. So today we are really on the discovery part of the dataset. So the first point is, once you have plenty of data sets, the first point is to find the data set that you're interested in. So if you click on the Discover dataset, you will first have a list of the different available dataset, and you can view them as cards, so like that, or as a list like that. The next step, of course, is being able to search or to filter in order to find this dataset. It will be more interesting when I will show you that live afterwards, but you have plenty of different ways to filter this dataset to find the kind of data you want to deal with. So once you have found the dataset you want, you click on the link on the line of the dataset, and you arrive on the main page of this dataset. So on this page, you will have 2 or 3 sections. So the first one is a section in which you have some description, what is the content of the dataset, some references, so who collected the dataset, who are the author of the dataset, who provided the dataset, so who uploaded the data online, some citation information, keywords, the date in which the data has been collected, etc. So that's the first part. The second part is really the place you go if you want to download the data, but also if you want to browse the data online. And finally, if you scroll down on the page, for the moment it's not everywhere, but we are going to grow that up in the next few weeks. You have data visualization about this data set. I will come back to that later. So first, to download, you have a button that allows you to download all the tables at once, or you can download each table individually. And you see that you have a row format here. So row format is the tables as the data provider uploaded it on the platform. So exactly as it was provided. And then you have CSV, JSON, and BXML, which is available for the moment. So this will be in the future, the data, but after formatting by the platform. So the platform will change some stuff, for example, sometimes the name of the columns, or the way, for example, the decimal separator or the column separator, to uniformize it across the whole platform. So it's more for uniformization purpose, but you can still have access to the raw data if you want. You can see also that there is a license. You always have with each dataset and sometimes with each table a precise license that explains to you what you can do and what you cannot do with the data. And of course, you can still upload the data on the platform. And if you don't want it to be public, it will be on the platform, but nobody can access to it. So this was for downloading the data, but you can also download the metadata. So the metadata here, you have table metadata and column metadata. So it's a precise description of each table. So you can see a version that has been downloaded. You have the name of the table, you have the license attached to each table, and you have a precise description of what is the content of each of these tables. Then you can also download what we call column metadata. So in that case, for each table, so here you have the table name, you have the column name of each table, you have the data type. So is it a string, an integer, is it a number, a text, etc. You have a descriptor, which is a very short description of the column. And then you have a full description of what is this table about. And sometimes you also have the unit. So for example, here you can see that the price is expressed in euro, the VAT is expressed in percentage, etc. So this is really helpful to understand what is in the data. And that's as a data consumer, but of course, as a data provider, it means that you need to provide all this information. But that's a very good practice to provide that level of details, both for sharing, but also for yourself, when you want to go back to this data 3 years from now, you will be very happy to have that level of information. So that's downloading the metadata and downloading the data, but you can also browse the data on the platform without downloading it. So to do that, you will, for example, click on the name of a table if you want to discover what is inside this table. Then you arrive, so you were on the page of the dataset. Then you arrive on the page of the table within a dataset. So in that case, it's called vet case B. So it's just a code name. And you have a description of the content of this table precisely. You have information about the dimensions. So 14 columns, 84 rows, and a total of more than 1,000 records from that. You still have the possibility to download just the data and the metadata for that table, and you have the license for that table on. And then if you go down, you have a section called table profiling. So this will help you to gather more precise information about what is in this table. So a first example of what you can do, that's the most obvious one. You want to just see the data in a table, So this tab here, we show you just a few rows, not all the table because it will be too long generally, but just the first one so that you can have an idea of the organization, the name of the column, and what kind of data is in this column. So generally, for most people, it will be a first and it would be enough. But sometimes it's not enough to really understand and to see what is exactly in these tables. So we have more information here. Just move you. So if you go on the first tab, you have metadata. And in fact, this part provides both information on each column, like the data type, the descriptor, the units, but also some descriptive statistics. So you see, for example, that you have the percentage of missing value, the number and the percentage of missing values, and some descriptive data. It could look a lot, it's a lot of information, but if you really ask yourself some question on very precise fields, it can be very useful to have this kind of information. So I provided a few examples. I went through the table and the kind of stuff I would look in that. So you see that you have a column called year. Obviously, this will contain the year in which the observation took place. But you see that the minimum is 2006 and the maximum is 2022. So the range of years is from 2006 to 2022. That's for numeric values. You have the quantile, the median, etc. But of course, for text value, like the disease column, it would not make sense to compute a mean. So you have a different kind of descriptive statistic here. What you can see is that there are only two unique value in this field. And the most column value is American full brood and European full brood. So, and you have the numbers. So it means that in this data set, you have 49 notification of AFB and 35 notification of EFB. So you can already have a very precise idea of the content of that table. The missing value is sometimes interesting. So you can see here that you have date start and date end. So it's quite obvious that it's a range of dates. So it's a data set about AFB outbreak. So it's the start of the outbreak and the end of the outbreak. But there are some missing values. So it means that for some outbreaks, this information is not available. And something that is strange also here is that you have not the same number of missing value for the date start and date end, and you have more missing value for the date end than the date start. So the meaning of that is that when the data set has been collected, most likely there were some outbreak that were still running. So you have a starting date, but you don't have an ending date yet. So it's complex like that, but when you start asking yourself questions about the structure of the data set, again, that can be very useful to understand. Another interesting stuff here, you have nuts. So nuts, if you're not familiar with it, it's a standardized code for different political levels. So the country, the province, the locality, etc. And you have different level of precision. You can see here that you have 18 unique values. So here it just shows you the most common value, the three most common one. So you don't have all the values. But what you can see here is that you have BE and BE323. So it means that in the same column, we have a mixture of nuts at different level. BE is for the country, it's just Belgium, and B323 is nuts 3. So I don't know, I think it's more precise than the province. So it's a region inside Belgium. So it means that for some data, we have the relatively precise location, but for other data, we just have the information that it occurs somewhere in Belgium. So again, more precise understanding of the content of the data thanks to this kind of analytics. So if you go on the third tab here, it will also be column by column. It will also be statistics, but it will be represented graphically. So sometimes it's a bit redundant. So for example, here you have the proportion of missing value, the proportion of unique value. Is just another way to look at it. If you don't want to look at the exact number, but have a general view. But sometimes you have more precise information. So here you really have the distribution of the value. So it's a frequency distribution. So it shows you the number of times where we observed a value between 0 and 1,500, something like that. So you can really have an idea of the distribution of the data. And here you have a box plot, which is another way to represent exactly the same thing, so the distribution, but it's quite often also used to spot outliers. So these points are considered usually as outlier points. This can be useful for plenty of reasons. Here, it's probably just that you have outliers in this data set. Sometimes it's a way to spot errors. Sometimes it's encoding errors that provoke these outliers. So it's another way to better understand the content of the data. So these profiling charts will change. So here you have one group of charts, and here you can see that for another column, the charts are different. This is because the type of data is different. So here it's the month, it's an integer. So depending on the kind of data, we will try to make the graph that makes the most sense for it. And so here, for example, you have the distribution of the top 20 values. So you see that the month of July had the most number of observation, and this one is presented by decreasing order. This one is basically the same graph, but turned 90 degrees. But here it's sorted by decreasing frequency order, while here it's presented by increasing value order. So it's not the same order. So depending on the data set, one plot will be more useful than the other. We cannot be sure of that in advance. So it's a way to produce the graph automatically and let you choose the one that you want. And finally, if you go down below the download section, you will have another part with also graph that is called data visualization. The aim here is not to provide comprehensive data analysis of the whole data set. The aim here is just to give you an overview of the data, a summary of the data, and to help understand, okay, what is inside this data set. So, for example, in this data set, you can see that we have American full brood notification over time in Austria, Belgium, and also the European full brood for Belgium. So you know that this is the kind of information we have. And we also have in this data set some for one region in Austria, the exact location, or here it has been blurred to protect the anonymity of the location, but it's much more precise than in the other region. But this is usually done on a summary of the data. So you have to make some computation on the raw data. You don't have in the data set the total number of notification for that year. It's a computation that is done on the platform to summarize the data. So to summarize this, concerning the graphs, you have two types of graphs. You have what we call profiling charts and data visualization. These are present in two separate parts of the platform because they have two different aims. So the profiling charts, the aim is understanding the content of each column. So you will have graph like that for each column of each table of each data set, and they are produced automatically. So it means also that sometimes they are not really useful. So for example, the first column here is the ID. So it's just a sample identification code. So obviously for this one, making graph will not be very interesting. And so this one will be on the page of each table. The data visualization will be on the main page of each dataset because the aim there is to provide an overview, a summary of the whole dataset. So these ones are designed differently for each dataset. So it means that they are not always available because it's a lot of work for each dataset. You have to basically make an analysis and a summary of the dataset. And of course, the graph will be completely different depending of the dataset. So it's done for the presentation. So now I can go live. I don't know if we answer question now, if there are some or.
Yeah, if someone has questions now, please do them now. Otherwise, maybe there are going to be some questions that are going to happen while you are showing live. But you can either raise your hand or write them in the chat.
But no, I don't see the chat and I don't see the hand. So if
but
somebody...
I see them. I see them.
Okay,
no
so
worries.
interrupt me if there is any need.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to the platform. So don't be surprised. I have basically 3 browsers open here. One is for the presentation. And in fact, I have 2 different, I'm logged with 2 different name on the 2 different browser. The aim here is that this one is how you will see the platform as a random user. In this one, we have some stuff in addition because we are manager of the platform, but I will need it at one point. So that's, if you click here on the little icon, this is the entry point of the platform. You have some statistics, the last data sets. And you have these 3 parts that I talked to you about. So if I go on my data catalog, with this person, I have no data set to show you. So that's why I'm going to the other one. So that's my, so here you can see that I'm connected with my real name, and I have 2 data sets, which are private, both of them. But you can see that if I change if I switch the data provider, and I choose, for example, Biene Österreich, I have access to other dataset because we are collaborating with Michael on this dataset to improve them, document them, etc. And you can see also, if I go to EU Pollinator Hub, we still have plenty of dataset that are pending now. So they are in the pipeline. They are not yet public, but they are going to be public in the near future. If I come back here, so just to give you an idea or to remind you if you were there last time. So this is really the place where you upload the data and where you document the data set. So you have the main page of your data set. You can edit it and you can provide information like the title. This is where you put the tags. So you can see here that we have encoded the tags, a description of the data set. You can provide picture, but that's not really necessary. And you also have the table. Here it's a quite simple data set with only 2 tables. It's a pesticide test on bees, as you can see. So if I go on the tables, again, I could edit it to have the description. So you see that it's really important to provide a good description of the dataset. You really have to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else who does not know you, who need to understand what you did with this data. And this is also where you go to describe. And here you will be able to describe each column of the dataset. And of course, this is the information that will be downloadable on once the dataset is public. So it's really important to take time to do it properly. So that's it for that part. And I will go back here. So here I have no dataset to share. You also have the part about this dictionary. So this dictionary of terms in order to translate or to uniformize between dataset. So very quickly, you have different way to interact with it. So for example, if I take the tree view, you have a hierarchy. So for example, I think beekeeping, yes, that's the one, of course, where you have a lot of classes. So you can see that you have a kind of tree and hierarchy. And if you go on one term, you can see that you can have a description, a definition, so that everybody agrees of what we mean by that. You can also have pictures. You can have translation. So this one is really complete. So you have translation in many different languages. And this is collaborative. So you can, if you think the translation is not good, you can propose a new translation. So the idea is to grow this part over time. So now I click on Discover Dataset, and I'm back to what I've shown you during the presentation. So for the moment, there are not so many data sets that are public, but it will grow in the near future. So as I told you, you can type, so for example, pesticide, and you can see that it will filter immediately the ones that contain pesticide. But for example, if I want only the pesticide for Austria, and I type this, so for the moment, as you can see, it added new data set. This is because for the moment in this part, it is searching for any dataset that contains either pesticide or the term Austria. If you want to do it differently, you can go on the keywords. So the keywords, you can select several of them. So I can select pesticides. So again, you have these two datasets that contains information about pesticides. And if I want only the ones for Austria, I can select this one. So it's the same. For the moment, it's selecting either a dataset with either pesticide or Austria. But you can tick that box here, and then it will only search for the dataset that contains all these keywords together. So it's pesticide and Austria. You can also search for exact match. You can filter by license. So, well, if you really need something that allows, for example, commercial use, you can select only the CC BY, for example. And you can also select by year. So, for example, if you want only the most recent ones, you can select several years. Or if on the contrary, you want only the oldest one. So for the moment, the oldest data is 1998. You can see which one is in that case. Okay, you can reset here if you have plenty of filters. Okay, I will start with this one. So now I click, so I have just clicked on one of these datasets because I want to see what is in there. So you can see here that you have some description. Here the description is a bit laconic. You don't have much information. So a data set about honeybees in Austria, but you can see that there are really plenty of tables. So this is typically a difficulty with this kind of data set. You didn't collect the data yourself, and you are asking, okay, what is in this data set? Is it useful for me? You have some indication from the keywords here that you have plenty of information. You have data about AFB, American Fullbrood, Varroa, beekeeping, honey, the price of honey, winter mortality, winter colony loss, etc. So you really have plenty of information in this data set. So a first idea could be to download the whole data. So I will do that here. I will save it on my disk. So it is here. It's a zip, so you need to unzip it first. And then you can access to the content of the data. So for example, if I go here, I can open it. So if you don't know, these are CSV files. So they are text file with columns separated by the same character, which is usually a comma, but it could be also a semicolon or other stuff. And you can open that in Excel or any spreadsheet software. So here I'm using LibreOffice. You have to specify which character is using to separate the column. So you can see here that it's a comma. So if I do semicolon, it's not good. But if I use comma, it has the column. And if I do that, I can open it. So here it's a small one, but still it's not very easy to understand, okay, what it is. There is a year, there is a value, but what it is about, it's not that easy. With the name, we have SAT prices. So this is probably prices, but it's not that easy to understand exactly what is in there. So to have more information, you can go to the metadata. So I will download the table metadata, I'll save it. And I will also download the column metadata, and I will also save it. And then I will go here. So that's the table. So if I open this one is really the description of every table in the dataset. So for the moment, it's not very easy to read, but you can always reorganize that. If he agrees. Yes, you can format to wrap of that. No. Like that. Okay, so here, for each table, you have a complete description about who provided the data and what is inside each data. So normally the name is already an indication, but you have more information Yeah, basically, I was saying that having that this information, you have it on the website, so you can browse it online, but sometimes it's really helpful to have it locally, because sometimes you want to process the data to make reports locally, etc. So that's for the description of each table. I won't save it. And you can do the same with the description of each column. So again, here you have the name of the table, and inside this table, you have columns that are named like that contain this kind of data, strings, integers, numbers, etc. You have the units. You don't have many units here, but yeah, you can see that, for example, here is the number of varroa mites per day for this one. So that's really important to have that kind of information. That's often something that is missing in the data set. And when you don't have that kind of information, it's often difficult to exploit the data. And then you have a short description of what is inside each of these columns. Oops. Okay, so that was for the downloading part, and you can, of course, download each table separately if you want. For the rest, I will go to another data set, this one. So you can see that you can add a picture. So if you remember on this one, I added, yeah, that's a picture of Noah doing the experiment. But here it's a summary of a graphical summary of the data set. That's not mandatory, but that's could be nice also to afterwards find easy for an easy find of the data. So you have this third part with the description. We have the part here with the downloads, but this is also the part where you can go browse. So if I click here, so not on the download button, but on the line, I will be redirected to the page of the table. So I'm within this data set, so the vet cases data set, and I'm in this data table here, which are the veterinary cases for Belgium. And you have this profiling part here. So the sample data from the file. So if you don't want to download the data, but just have a grasp of what is in this table, you would come here. Just keep in mind that this is not the whole data set. It's just cropped after a certain number of rows. You have this metadata. So that's what I show you previously. So for each column, you have information about the quantity of missing data, descriptive statistics, etc. And then you have the profiling charts. And these charts are interactive, so you can have more information. So for example, the ID here is the kind of, that is not really helpful. But if you go on the year, here, for example, you can see that we have more information, more notification of these diseases during these years. You can see that there are plenty of years in which you have only one, which might be strange. But for example, if you go on value here, so it's the value associated with the notification, you can see that the vast majority of the values are 1. So it's just one notification for that year on that place. But sometimes you have much more. So at one point we have 36 notifications. So it means that there are some aggregations. So maybe some rows in the data set, in fact, correspond to several notifications. So it means that probably at one point it was a notification for Belgium, and there was 36 notifications for Belgium at that period of time. But you can see also that we have some zero. We have 3 zero values. So this means that for some of these years, in fact, there is no notification. It's an absence of notification, but the fact that you have a 0 gives you the information that this year we were collecting information, but there was no notification, which is totally different than the cases where you didn't collect information from that year, from that place. So again, this helps you to dig into the data without needing yourself to do all these graph, all these computations. Okay, so I will go back, sorry, to the vet case datasets. So this was for browsing, and then you have this data visualization part. So as I explained before, these are computation on the data to give you a grasp, a summary of the data. Most of the graphs are interactive, not always. Sometimes people are not totally accustomed to this kind of graph, so you can be lost. So you can interact. The most important part is that you can have the exact value. So in 2019, there were 97 notification, which is easier to get than to look at the axis to estimate what was the exact number. But you also have some tools here. So for example, here you could, if you want, zoom just on that part to have that place. You can click here to download that as that plot as a PNG file, so to have it locally on the file. Sometimes you can be lost, so here you can move inside the plot. But if you are lost here and you want to go back, you could reload the page, but you have also the little house here, which is reset axis. But you can also double click on the graph, and it will go back to where it was. So here we have the trend over time. So for each year, the total number of notification for the different diseases in the different countries. Another way to look at this data is to look for seasonal patterns. So this is the total number of notification per month over all the available years. Well, here you have an example where you would like to zoom in, for example, to have it in a more precise way. So that's another way to look at the data. And then it's sometimes useful to have a bit of context. So here we have added, so in this data set, it's mostly a notification for large region, like a province or a whole country. But for one of the Austrian region, for Styria, there is in fact much more precise information about the location of this notification of AFB. So you have here an interactive map on which you can zoom in. You can click on a point to see that, okay, the starting point date of this outbreak was on the 12th of July in 2018, and it ended a few days later. And you also have the code of the municipality here. By the way, here it's not the exact location. So as you can see here, it has been blurred a little bit just to protect the anonymity of the beekeepers. So that's a much more precise information, but sometimes it's too much, it's too messy. And so here you have an example of a data treatment of this data, because sometimes what you just want to know is where are the most frequently, where these AFB outbreaks are most frequently observed. So this is a density plot that show you where you have most of the observation. This one is not interactive for the moment, it's just a static one, so it won't react if you click on it. And so as you can see, the idea here is just to show you very quickly what is globally in this data set. So probably most of the time, if this part is available, you will first look at the visualization to have an idea, okay, what is in this data set? And then if you want to really have more precise information, then you will go in each table and explore each column to understand really the content of the different parts. Okay, so that's it for me. So if you want an access to the platform, the location is here. And you can always contact us if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have recommendation, problems, etc. And I'm open to any questions.